So in this screencast we're going to explore some of the windows, some of the basic functions on the standard interface in Final Cut Pro. So when you launch Final Cut Pro, this is the standard interface. These are the windows that you'll generally be faced with. Final Cut Pro, it's extremely powerful. There are actually a number of different setups that you can have. If we look in Window under Arrange, each of these are preset to be good layouts for different functions. Here we can see color correction, for example. But for, again, almost all your purposes, standard will work perfectly well. Now, I should mention also, if you accidentally close windows or move things around, get things untidy, you can easily put it back to how you would expect to find it by going to Window and selecting Arrange and choosing Standard. So in the standard setup you have four main windows here. You have the browser window, which is where all your files are. I'll just open up another project I have here. And you can see there's a number of files here, and they're listed in a traditional sort of file tree structure. You can use as many folders as you wish to organize your files. In editing, folders are called bins, but they function exactly like any normal folder. You can look at your files in different ways. You don't have to view them as a list here. Now, to set to sort of different viewing there on your browser, you can go to View, Browser Items, and here you can choose between lists and icons. Icons there obviously showing a thumbnail of the video. While I'm on that point, Final Cut Pro, as I said just a moment ago, is a hugely powerful program, and because it is, you can do everything in sort of a large number of ways. There's lots of different ways of doing every single task. You can normally do things using some of the buttons that you see on the interface. You can use the menus like we just did. You can also use shortcut keys. And there's also a right-click function. Now, a lot of people that aren't used to Macs aren't aware there's a right-click function. There's obviously only one button on the mouse, but if you hold the Control key, whilst you can just see how the mouse has changed there. If you hold the Control key whilst you press that button, it brings up menus just as it would on Windows with a right-click. And you can see here, you can quickly change the view of your browser using right-click. So I'm going to put it back to list here. So that's your browser window. That's how you organize all of your files. If you load any individual clips, let's see, there's a clip here. You can double-click, or you can physically drag it in. If I drag it in, that'll load it up. But if I double click, that also loads it up. All clips load in this. This is your viewer. So you view your files on this side, and to the right of the viewer is another window, and this window shows what's currently on the timeline. Now, this timeline's blank, so we're not seeing anything at the minute. If I load up a sequence that I've already cut, I'll just select this one. You can see that this clip and this clip are independent. This clip is the footage that we've captured, that we've shot. On this side, what we're looking at is an output of whatever we've edited on the timeline. So in most cases that'll be your final edit there. Now what I'm doing here, as you can see, I'm scrubbing through the footage. Again, there's a number of different ways of doing this. You can press play here. This is your play button.
Yeah, well, it's also my studio.
Or the shortcut key. One of the most universal shortcut keys in all edit suites and edit systems is that the spacebar will start and stop the video. So if you just press spacebar,
I guess I've got the computer up for...
and that's the fastest way of playing and stopping your video. Whilst it's playing, you can probably notice down here on the bottom right, this is your audio.
Do a lot of drawing in here.
We'll talk about audio later.
We're about to afford a studio, an actual studio, but it's just not.
But that's showing your levels
but
there
this isn't the only
as
place.
you go along. And you've also got, this is your tool palette, and we'll talk about what some of these tools do later, but these are some of the main tools that you can use to go about editing on your timeline. As you can see on the timeline, essentially what you've got are blocks. These green blocks are the audio, the blue blocks are the video. And it's literally a case of cutting these blocks to size and putting them up against each other to show where the cuts are. Where there's just a line, there's a cut. Where there's, let me just zoom in here. Now there's lots of, again, different ways of zooming in. You can use the timeline here. So if I click this in the middle, I can move up and down my timeline, but if I click the very edges, it actually zooms in and out on my timeline. Also, the shortcut for this is the command key and plus or minus, and you can do that on your keyboard. So you can see here, this is a transition. We've got two shots and a transition's being put between them. In this case,
you can spend the whole day.
Now I'll go on to show how all of these things are done in later screencasts. This one's just to introduce, as I say, the main features. Now there are a few other different ways of navigating around on the timeline. You can play.
Studio bit.
You can click the yellow triangle where this marker is, and you can just hold the mouse down and scrub backwards and forwards. You can click to the point that you want to be at. Note you have to click inside the timeline itself. This little grey area here is the only place that will work. Also, in terms of shortcut keys, have a play with the arrow keys and see what they do. They do lots of interesting things. The two side arrow keys will move it back and forward one frame. The up and down arrow keys will move your cursor there to the nearest edit point. If you can see, it's just selecting the start and end of the nearest edit point. That's a very useful way of very quickly navigating to the precise start or end of any clip that you've got.